everybody.
Okay, hello everyone, and good morning or good afternoon, depending on what part of the world you're calling in from. My name is Ben Thomas, and I'll be your presenter today, Leveraging Internet Technology for Better UST Compliance. I'm with UST Training, usttraining.com, and as many of you probably know, we provide online and live ABC UST operator training. We do a little bit of inspector training and certified worker training, but our day-to-day stuff is ABC. Just a quick little thing about me. Make sure the slides are working here. I am a proud member of PEI. I just finished up a 2-year term with the Petroleum Equipment Institute as their affiliate board member. And so I'm a big promoter of the Petroleum Equipment Institute as an excellent resource for UST technical services. But my background actually goes back to 1982 when I was technically a Class C UST operator at a Mobile Howard Johnson's rest area in Connecticut, where I grew up. I kind of cut my teeth as a UST inspector way back in 86, 87, so I technically predate the federal law. And then I moved to Alaska and went to school there, got my degree, and along the way worked for the Alaska DEC, first as a cleanup project manager for leaky tanks, and then I kind of got my passion, as it were, with UST leak prevention. And so back in 1996, I launched one of the first state UST agency web pages trying to digitize technical services, using the internet to be able to deliver those services. So that's maybe kind of where this whole thing began. In 2003, I provided the nation's first state-approved AB operator training course in Portland, Oregon. It's hard to believe that was almost 20 years ago. And then in 2007, figured out how to kind of digitize all this training stuff. There's only so many places I can be around the country any given time. And so we started creating online ABC content back in 2007. In fact, I think some of you are on the line here when I did some of my early webinars for AB operator training in Colorado. That was a very exciting time. I helped create state UST agency training web pages with Maine, Montana, Kentucky, and Idaho. You might have seen me on a Tank Savvy Minute on YouTube. That's going on 11 years now with a YouTube presence. And to date, it's hard to believe we're pushing 750,000 Class C operator training certificates online. And anyways, yeah, very excited to be here. Quick disclaimer though, because I'm going to be talking about a lot of vendors. They're friends of mine, they're associates of mine, but I do want to say, I'm not paid by any one vendor. We have great mutual reciprocating relationships, but all this talk today is not an endorsement of any one vendor. In fact, no one slide represents only one vendor for that topic. In other words, if I have a topic about measuring fuel levels, a bunch of vendors may do that. You might recognize an image or a brand or a logo, but that's not necessarily saying they're the only ones that do that. Some vendors offer one specific service, some offer many. Probably no one offers every single service I'm going to talk about today. So you as the consumer need to kind of shop around and visit the vendors and see what they offer, what your needs are, and kind of come up with a match from there. I'm trying to be fair to everyone across the board. Some brands are more popular and known than others. Some are kind of new and up and coming. I'm trying to give everyone a fair shake. So anyways, that's my little kind of disclaimer here. So what I hope today we can think about is knowing about the evolution of UST technologies. This is important for me because, I started a long time ago, and everything was, manual credit card swipe things, those little clicky machines and the stick that measured the fuel in the tank and the clipboard and all that sort of stuff. And since the advent of the internet, everything has slowly evolved to be more digitally available. And so in part, this is just kind of a reflection of my own time in the career about how much has changed over time, but I do want to showcase some of the benefits of these new digital solutions. You may know some, you may know all these digital solutions. You may be completely surprised that all this stuff is mostly kind of internet-driven based. So I'm hoping to showcase some of the benefits and learn about what some of the options that are out there. Again, I'm trying to talk about this kind of topically driven, but there are a lot of vendor names you may recognize. So you need to consider what individual services or maybe suite of services best fit your company need. I mean, I see we've got some really big companies on the line here. We have some maybe smaller mom and pop operators. We have inspectors, other service providers who I'll be talking about today. So there's a lot of stuff out there. I'm hoping this is kind of a kickoff to get the ball rolling. So back in the old days, this is how I used to do stuff, right? Inventory control, clipboard and a stick, and you try to do your measurement, take account into water and all that sort of stuff. That's old school how we used to manage fuel inventory. We used to mail in or fax in reports about registering your tanks or making amendments. Let's say you changed out your piping in a system, the state agency needs to be notified. It was all done kind of old school through fax and mail. If you're running out of fuel, you'd have to call the delivery driver and have them kind of figure out how much room is in the tank. And so we'll talk about how all that's changed. Lots and lots and lots of forms. The UST program is really a paperwork record-driven company. And so having written tank test forms, having written alarm logs, having written monthly inspection forms, all on clipboard. I'll talk about what are some of the new alternative solutions to that method of doing stuff. When I do live training or when I talk to someone at a site who's got a tank gauge, the first thing I say is, do you have internet connectivity? And a lot of tank gauges out there still don't. And so if Joe goes into the back room and sees the alarm, there's no internet connectivity, nobody in the whole wide world knows that that tank gauge is an alarm, much less even what it means. Old school is even really, we're talking about ATG automatic tank gauge buttons. Even the buttons of our beloved historic tank monitors are starting to go away. ATG printout pile as a history of leak detection. And so I know inspectors have a long history of being frustrated by just being given a giant box of paper when in fact there's other ways to go about doing that. Likewise, 3-ring compliance binders, some of you folks still use them out there and there's a functional place for that, but there is a digital substitute coming your way. If you're managing large geographic areas, it used to be you'd have to, drive from door to door and visit all your sites. And so we've got some new ways of considering that. Likewise, I'm excited. I pulled into a gas station in Aberdeen, Washington the other day, and there was my certificate, right above the tank monitor in this gas station. So that was kind of cool. But there are other more sophisticated ways for tracking operator training compliance. Underground storage tank operators have a lot of scheduling to consider. And so having the wall calendar to track duties and deadlines is somewhat old school. We'll talk about some of those other digital solutions. Back in the old days, you used to have to shut down a site in order to do leak detection because you needed quiet time, but there's also some solutions out there for that. Likewise, being able to catalog all the information at your site. If you have a lot of sites, what kind of tanks do you have? What kind of leak detectors? What kind of tank gauges? Double wall, single wall, all that sort of stuff. In the old days, that was just kind of a 3-ring binder kind of thing. Also in the old days, tech support would be calling up someone on the phone. We'll talk about some new solutions there. And even as far as looking underground, we'll talk about how that has even changed over time. So that being said, this was me, not literally me, this was me back in 1982, sticking a tank, doing the math, trying to figure out, was I above or below leak detection thresholds? Now, all this stuff has pretty much been automated. I want to think that the stick is there largely to, periodically verify fuel levels, but, or maybe for verifying ethanol, if you don't have the right kind of float. But really, most people today should be using a digital inventory control and reconciliation software package. What's new, it removes human-driven measurement error. Measurement error is the enemy of this industry. And whenever you get a person involved with a stick and a clipboard, your measurement error goes way up. And so we have very more computerized, standardized, sophisticated ways to reduce that measurement error. We store complete history of inventory, so we know how much fuel's in the tank over time. We can do things like measure meter drift, so we can tell if our meter calibration is off. But it's basically thousands of times more accurate because we're doing literally thousands of liquid measurements, more data, more reliable results, fewer missed leaks. So we do want to remove the human error by having our inventory measurements done with a internet-driven data collection solution. Back in the old days, we used to register all of our information kind of via paperwork. And so state agencies, you would have to, fax or mail in a piece of paperwork. Now, and Arizona is a great example of that. Arizona now has this thing called My DEQ. And what it is, it's a portal into your account. So all of our systems are now being put online. More and more states are doing that. We're trying to link these services directly to our training, so that when people take our training, they can log in, get a printout of their site, and know exactly what kind of tank they got in the ground. So that I'm excited to see many UST agencies are getting modernized. We're getting rid of the filing cabinet, and we're digitizing each and every UST system in electronic format. No more faxes. Easy to access site records for both the operator and the inspector. So if I call up and say, what kind of tank system you got, they can log in and verify that information. Likewise, inspectors have that at their fingertips. You can do rapid file updates and status. And so we're getting into where we're really a lot more real time with this information. And we can have searchable online databases. I know Colorado has that too, and a bunch of other states. You can log into a search engine, get a printout of the site. When we do operator training, it's tough in the fact that there's so many different type of tank systems that are out there. And does this slide I'm looking at even apply to me? I mean, if you know what kind of tank system you have because it's accessible from the web, then you can have the training experience just be all the more valuable. Knowing exactly how much operating fuel levels you have, right? You could go and stick the tank or maybe even check your tank gauge, but there are digital solutions now that can give you kind of really nifty, more forensic, more kind of business-driven levels here. You can see here we've got volume full, nice kind of visual graphic here, volume and size, relative, approximate ullage or ullage, how much empty airspace you have, and even a forecast about when fuel is needed and if there are alarms. So the best thing about having internet-based management of operational fuel levels, you can do forecasts when deliveries are needed. With the price of fuel being so high, you don't want to be storing a bunch of fuel that's not moving very fast. So you can make some good kind of business decisions that way. It does notify the drivers to avoid running out of fuel and having shutdown. And so if you're low on fuel or have too much fuel, you can manage that accordingly. You can also have a history of deliveries to help budget future needs. And so that way you can kind of, this is as much a business model as a business solution as it is an environmental solution. You can actually budget your fuel inventory amounts to be able to just make good business decisions. So you don't want to prevent over and under ordering. So there's a lot of great, there's a number of vendors who provide that service right now. Managing large geographic areas. I mean, back in the old days, I did this for years. You drive around from site to site and you look at stuff and you measure stuff. And if you're trying to figure out stuff on a tank gauge, it can be kind of problematic. And so there are tank monitoring programs now that also allow you to cover large geographic areas. No more driving to sites. Geography can really be managed at a desktop as far as tank monitoring information. You can get a company snapshot, you can get a report of all sites under your jurisdiction, and it's kind of just a classic remote monitoring capability. Back in the old days, the tank tester would show up to your site, they would do a tank or line test, they'd give you the results afterwards. Now it's a completely different creature because you have companies that are able to store all this compliance data under one roof. No more paper to lose. You'll be hearing that as a theme throughout this morning's talk. You've got standardized fields, and so you can actually start kind of comparing data because it's all entered into a database. You can consolidate historic reports. And so if the inspector shows up, you can go online, go to your system, download a report, and demonstrate that the training has been done. It is very easy to update, and you can actually evaluate trends and look for potential problems over time. So again, we've kind of shifted from the tank and line test, or for that matter, even the annual certification tests, all that stuff that is covered under PEI RP 900 can also be stored here as well. This one I'm super excited about. I used to go to gas stations all over the country and they were always an alarm, and the person had no idea what I was even talking about, right? So back in the old days, you go in the back room, you see this blinking red light. What do? Now there are software systems that can not only respond to alarms, but sort through the information so you can make good decisions. Automatic tank gauges have all sorts of alarms, right? There's like really bad alarms or things are really problematic. There's alarms that are maybe suspect, that are alarms that are kind of low key. I'm running out of paper, whatever like that. And so there are software programs online now that basically consolidate all this information, cut out the stuff that is simply background noise. We want to get into the business of never ignoring an alarm. And if a third-party solution is monitoring your alarms off-site and filtering through the non-critical or non-urgent alarms, you can have better information. You're basically taking the alarm response out of on-site humans. And so the human backup is not a, pardon me, not a bad idea, but as a principal way of responding to leaks and alarms, we want to take that out of their hands. We target only the alarms that matter. We can also do standardized digital alarm diagnostics so we can be more accurate and more consistent, and we can get some really great alarm reporting histories. And so we can determine if a site chronically has the same alarm over and over again, well, maybe the sump's not tight and water keeps on coming in, the alarm keeps going off, and the operator is frustrated. So we can make some, I think, long-term business and environmental decisions based on these alarm histories. Monthly inspections, yeah, that was me with a clipboard and a pen and kind of checking out stuff, but there is now report form solutions that can be created and customized for your individual needs. And so really, most inspectors today should be out there with an iPad. And forms are tough, right? Every state has their own different type of form. I'm a member of the RP 900 committee, PEI RP 900, which is being able to provide daily, monthly, annual inspections. But a lot of states have kind of created their own inspection forms. There are a number of companies out there that create these customized form platforms that you can customize either to a company level or a state level. Basically, no more lost results. You've got a consistency of fields. You've got on-site, off-site storage. No more paper to computer transcribing, especially if you're doing your inspections out in the field. And these are easily customizable. And so we want to be able to kind of digitize all these things, but also have the ability to customize them based on state or county or maybe tribal or even company specific needs. And so know that there's a number of platforms out there that can provide us with this report documentation capability. Come on. I mentioned this earlier, the ATG as a standalone console. Joe no longer has to worry about wondering what's going on in the back room because he can get a notification on his tablet, on his phone, or even on his computer. And so we've kind of gotten away from not knowing what's going on. Again, the tank gauge is no longer a standalone console if you have internet connectivity, on-site, off-site monitoring, mobile device access. Some operators love it that they can have information right to their phone. Some it's problematic if you don't know what those alarms are, but you can have real-time access to all the alarm conditions at all your sites. You get immediate notification anywhere. And again, another theme here, we're removing on-site untrained humans from not knowing what those alarms are. And you can aggregate view of many sites into one. And so you've got much better control over your alarm levels. Even the alarm interface is changing. I've got another webinar coming up. Our beloved Veeder-Root TLS 350 is in fact going away. And so tank gauges are slowly losing their button feature, as it were. Everything is moving to a touchscreen capability. There's a lot of cool tank monitor interfaces that are coming out here. As you can see, you've actually got a colorized box here. This doesn't look like it's something from the 80s. This is a very contemporary device. No more buttons, color screen, pictures of the tank profile. I think this is a great feature because you can literally look at the number of tanks you have, determine how full they are. It'll tell you how much fuel's in the tank, how much ullage or ullage, what the temperature is, any alarms, things like that. But it does look and behave more like a tablet. So the tank gauges are kind of getting caught up to the rest of our kind of digital technology. They are definitely Gen XYZ friendly. And so younger people coming into the industry today would naturally expect the technology to kind of mirror the kind of tools that they use automatically. I find these to be more intuitive. There's probably a lot of people out there that are kind of rolling their eyes going, oh man, I just got used to the Veeder-Root TLS 350. Right now they're kind of shifting it out. The 350 is going away, and I've got a special guest speaker from Veeder-Root in a couple of weeks talking about what that transition is going to look like. But there's a lot of benefits to having these newer models here. A lot of them have to do with security and diagnostics, but you've got contemporary navigational features. They're more intuitive. They're a lot easier to program remotely, and they're a lot more secure. So be on the lookout for new tank gauges coming your way. I can't tell you how many of these compliance binders I've looked at over the years. This is a giant one from California. I mean, lots and lots and lots of paperwork, right? And so the proverbial 3-ring binder, I think, has its place in the world here, but there are services now that consolidate all this compliance information under one umbrella. Again, there are a number of vendors out there that provide this service. So I'm not saying this is the one, but there are a number that are worth kind of researching. So you can automatically search your compliance binder to access specific information. You've got digital backups. Like with all these other services, you can't get a 3-ring binder lost or damaged in a fire or a flood. They are automatically updated. You can program site-specific record-keeping requirements. In other words, you can customize a lot of these fields to be able to track individual things that are either state, county, or company-specific. So I think the 3-ring, the ubiquitous 3-ring compliance binder will probably have its day. For a small independent operation, probably not a bad way to go. But if you've got more than a couple sites, you really need to have a much bigger picture of what's going on. And so there are compliance binder solutions for that. And of course, no talk would be complete without what we do, UST operator training. And this picture on the left here is a training that I helped do in Puerto Rico. Actually, it's going to be a number of years ago. And it was a great training. It was all done in Spanish. I provided it in English. They translated it. They gave the course. We hauled in all this gear, the kind of classic show and tell type classroom. There are a lot of operators to train out there. I mean, there's probably 2 million Class C clerks out there right now, and there's probably tens of thousands of AB operators now. And so what we need to have, I think, is just more immediate access to training, especially if you've been in trouble before and you can't line up a live class anytime soon. Operator training, what's different today? We can train anywhere and anytime. If my friends from Guam and Saipan are listening, thank you so much for coming all this way to hear us talk. We do provide training that is 24/7 available. We have nationally available AB content. We're AB approved in 35 states, and for Class C training, we're approved in all states except California. However, we are working on a California-specific refresher training course at the moment. We also offer training in Hindi. We're working on one in Spanish. And we also have Indian country, Class A, B, and C, UST operator training. As a trainer, it is very easy to update content. I just got a notice, hey, Delaware has just updated their compliance assistance manual, the CAM. And so, okay, so we got a copy, put it up on the web, and it's already updated. And so as each state has its own kind of micro adjustments, or even like a full-blown reg change, we're able to accommodate those changes, push out the changes, and then we are current. We have companies who train tens of thousands of UST operators under a single account. And so we have a ability to track very large amounts of user groups. Whether you have a couple of operators or a ton over a bunch of different states, the trackability, I think, is a very important feature with online learning. We can run detailed reports. An inspector shows up and say, okay, show me a list of all your trained operators, and boom, it's readily available. We can easily measure progress and scores. And so online training does provide the ability to be able to measure user progress and also get final test scores, and certificates are automated automatically. And I do want to put in a plug here. We actually provide free A, B, and C training to qualifying Arizona UST operators. We have a contract with the Arizona DEQ to provide training for basically everyone in the state. You log on, you get the training, we get reimbursed for each certificate for courses that are complete. And so if you're a state or a tribe or an entity that needs a lot of training, we have a great broad solution that I think can accommodate pretty much any user size. So why is it so important to stay on top of training and compliance? We think smarter operators make fewer leaks out there, right? If we have a smarter operator, we've got quicker inspections. Okay, here's all my records. Here's my spill buckets are clean. Here's all my tank gauge readouts. we should be seeing fewer violations and fines. I was recently asked, us and a couple other training vendors were asked to try to come up with a metric to prove whether or not operator training was in fact making things better for the UST industry. Having a hard time finding that exact matrix, that metric that does that. However, I think we are seeing fewer violations, fewer leaks, fewer spills. I'm seeing fewer ignored alarms. The more organized you are, the better you are for your business. Scheduling, scheduling, scheduling. There is so much stuff to schedule anymore. That never before have more lids been opened and more devices inspected than now in the history of the UST program. And so how do you keep track of all this stuff? There are companies that do compliance schedule tracking. There's stuff you do daily, there's stuff you do monthly, there's stuff you do annually, there's stuff you do, typo here, Chris, triannually. And maybe you have customized schedules as well. I do a lot of work with a Department of Defense, and they have weekly stuff, they have biannual stuff, they have, every 2-year kind of stuff. And so you can create a compliance calendar here. It is easier to track when you've got complex scheduling. You can synchronize calendars with compliance deadlines and results with automated billings. You can upload information from a third party. And so the whole idea that you're kind of tracking things on an old-timey calendar is kind of going away. Another big important feature is that with high throughput sites, it used to be leak detection was really hard to pull off because basically you were selling too much fuel. So now there are third-party applications like my friends here at Warren Rogers Fuel Wrap here. No longer volume is a limiting factor in leak detection. You can be pushing a lot of fuel, have limited quiet time, and still get a successful leak detection test result. Testing is done remotely via the web. And so rather than getting a couple-hour leak test, you're literally getting millions of data points gathered in to create extremely accurate leak detection test results. It does avoid static testing and shutdown with continuous testing. I've worked on a number of sites where they're selling so much fuel, they were not able to perform leak detection because the fuel level wasn't sitting still long enough. And so that capability is now in place. If you're having a hard time because you're so successful selling fuel, but you're having trouble getting leak detection test results, there are solutions out there for high throughput facilities. Asset management. And so tank systems, as you probably know, are complex electronic mechanical apparatuses. And so there's a lot of parts and pieces that are all working together in concert to make sure the fuel system works and it's not leaking. And so in the old days, you have a filing cab, you have to look up and say, okay, site 123 has double wall fiberglass, blah, 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 like that. Now you actually have services that provide digital inventory of all UST components. And so those are easy to update with images. You can use them to calculate required changes, replacements, and improvements. And so it's just a way of kind of managing your assets to the best of your business's capabilities. Even tech support. Tech support has kind of come a long way here. Back in the old days, you'd call someone, you kind of wait online here. Now there are nifty things like QR codes and come on. So we're starting to see more QR codes used in the industry as a direct link to exact tech support. So it used to be you'd have to kind of think big, but you had a specific thing in mind. You have to drill down and find the right person to make the call. Companies are now starting to use QR codes as a way to have direct contact. Hold up your phone, take a picture, go to the web page, and there's the exact information that you need. So think about adding QR codes and stickers to your automatic tank gauge. In fact, Chris, we should probably do one of those and have them put them on tank gauges so they can get training with our QR code, scan and go. Now, I will say that I learned at the last petroleum trade show that there is a company out there that is now starting to do tech support with basically like using your phone, using your how do I say this here? Kind of like doing a Zoom call with a contractor, and you can be holding over your phone and showing a live image of, let's say there's electrical panel here and like the wire is popped out. Which circuit does it go back into? You can actually hold the phone up. The service provider at the other end will look at that, and they can have a mirror image at their site, and they can overlay a picture and basically digitally give you instructions in real-time imagery on how to do that. I'm not really saying that well. So be on the lookout for more kind of sophisticated tech support where you're getting almost an avatar kind of solution out there. I will say too that I'm a member of a Facebook user group of service providers, and those guys and gals all hang online, and there's a lot of troubleshooting that happens via Facebook. And so someone goes to a site and it's like, how do I do this? Or how do I get this thing off here? And there's a great community resource out there. So tech support internally is happening through social media. I probably need to make a separate slide for that. There's a lot of cool options that are out there. If you need to know what your tank system looked like back in the day, you'd have to kind of wait for the tank system to get torn up and pulled out. Now we have virtual reality solutions. And so there are a number of companies now providing virtual reality visuals to give people a sense about the three-dimensional spatiality, I guess, of tank systems. So you don't need to dig out a tank anymore to kind of see what's underground. You have this immersive experience. I've been to petroleum trade shows. You put on a goggles and you can actually, be inside a tank pit. And I think for new inspectors, you get a much deeper sense of all this stuff you normally can't see that's typically buried. And so especially for new inspectors or people who just need to have kind of more visceral sense about what tank systems are, there are some great solutions. I'm actually learning there's a lot of different virtual reality models out there. You can actually have ones that are just kind of run on your phone that give you more of you don't have to have the goggles and the hardware to be able to kind of view this, but you get more of a richer sense about how these tank systems are put together. Otherwise, you're looking at a tank pad on the ground. It's kind of abstract, all this stuff here, but the virtual reality does create real-time context for the end user. You can do it from a computer versus being out in the field. Come on. Couple of bonus things. Some of you may know about this. EPA has an app out now called EPA UST Finder. And so you can basically find your UST system online. And this is version 1 or 2, I guess. You can see the picture on the left here is where the darker the color, the more USTs that are out there. So clearly we're looking at USTs in kind of large metropolitan area. Here where I live on Whidbey Island, Washington, I'm kind of down this way here, but I can see a couple of the local gas stations where I buy gas at. And so you can drill down to your area, click on a site, and then get site-specific information about those particular tanks. Not every tank is out there. The information is fairly current. It should be as accurate as what the state provides you. But if you need a quick search into a UST system in your area or your jurisdiction, then check out the following webpage. Another bonus, I think many of you know about my Tank Savvy Minute videos, youtube.com/UST training. And 11 years ago, it's hard to believe, I decided to start shooting a bunch of videos that would explain basic UST stuff. So feel free to go to our webpage. I've got a whole bunch of playlists. I'm trying to do more for different tank gauge models that are out there. I do need to update some of my YouTube videos, or some of them are getting, they're getting a little dated here. So, but be on the lookout here. If you need some basic Tanks 101 training, whether it's how to get reports out of your tank gauge, or how many tanks do I have, or what does the breakaway look like, lots of great videos out there for you to check out. youtube.com/UST training. And I will say, I mean, our world is, ABC, UST 24/7, right? So all we, we're UST people. However, a lot of these online services are connected to larger solutions. And so you can get, alcohol sales compliance, so COVID safe compliance, HR compliance. More and more, our world of certification trackability is being managed through web pages. And there are host companies that actually bundle all these services into one. So be on the lookout for more kind of bigger solutions out there. Oops. Go back one. Come on. So how is technology making compliance easier for tank operators and owners and inspectors, I should say? We now have the ability to consolidate lots of important tasks into a couple of dashboards. If you're kind of familiar with the dashboards concept of having your control console to manage all your UST compliance stuff, there are things that maybe you're doing manually that you can replace digitally, and there may be companies that bundle those digital solutions so you don't have so many vendors that are out there. but in my mind, it does automate measurements that are prone to human error. And measurement error is real. I mean, any measurement of anything anyone has ever done since the beginning of time has X amount of error involved in it. So if you're not careful, you're not being precise, your measurement may be off. And in our world, that means maybe missing the leak. And so we want to try to remove the human out of the equation as much as possible, reduce our measurement error, improve our reliability of things like leak tests and alarm response. But we are reducing missed alarms and bad leak calculations. And so that's been, I think that's a huge plus in this industry. We should be able to find smaller leaks quicker and respond better. We can use mobile devices and we can do digital reminders to stay on top of things, which is great. And I think the days of can't find my compliance binder should be kind of coming to an end if you're relying on a digital solution, because there will be a digital backup somewhere. And if my inspectors out there who are going on site and waiting, looking for that that hard copy of records, please give us a little bit of time as people try to figure out how to get the records to you as quick as we can. In other words, digital records ought to be sufficient as well as a hard copy, as long as they are readily available based on the jurisdiction that you're in. So technology can close the loop. We here at UST Training, we like to joke and say, yeah, we're an online company, but we're actually real people behind it. We're real people promoting digital technologies. And so technology can kind of link the equipment and the human and the management system and make all our lives a little bit better. Yes, it's relying heavily on the internet and technology. I mean, hurricane comes through, flood comes through, there are problems there, but at least a lot of this stuff is safely stored up in the cloud. So we're excited to be able to kind of fuse the human element, the equipment element, and the management system so that you all can be better operators or even inspectors. And this is kind of a funny picture because, I mean, any adoption of any new technology takes a little bit of time here. And so here's an example of an older Veeder-Root TLS 350, and it's got a little attention thing that says, hey, here's how you kind of do your leak test, but they've got a canary box on the wall. The canary is monitoring fuel levels, monitoring for alarms. So this sign kind of doesn't even have to be here, but the operator may not know that the black box is actually doing the work of the person. There's some help desk number here on the side, great kind of Sharpie notice here. So we'll call this kind of like a example of kind of a transitional model. So they got 1 foot in old school, 1 foot in the new school, and someone needs to kind of tell the operator that the black box is kind of managing all that for them. So this is, I think, what a lot of people are here for. There are a lot of choices out there. I tried to include every company that I represented here. There's probably more out there that I'm not even aware of. We go to trade shows, we kind of keep up with stuff. Some of these companies are continuing to offer new things. So Antea, Canary, Cromco, CSTAT, Facilitator, Franklin, Key, My Tank Age, Ready Training Online, Tanknology, Titan, State UST Agency Web Portals, Veeder-Root app, Warren Rogers, EPA, us, UST Training, and our YouTube videos. So feel free to grab a picture of this. I'll probably be making this recording available on YouTube afterwards. But again, there are a lot of solutions out there. Some solutions may be exactly what you need. Some may have more than what you need. You may have to get a couple of vendors to kind of stitch together a whole picture, but I would encourage you to go out and see what's out there to see how you can improve your compliance, improve your business operations, improve your relationship with your state UST inspector, because you're just that much more on board because these technologies are now available, making your life better. And so leveraging UST compliance is really your choice. And I've encouraged you to kind of visit a number of these vendors, talk to them, go to petroleum trade shows, and see if you can find a solution that can improve your business operations. Whew. Okay. Well, how are we doing on time? Oh, we're doing great on time. So that's kind of all I got for now. We have a webpage, usttraining.com. Come check us out. There's a toll-free number to call us at. There's emails to reach out to us, and we've got a YouTube channel. Any questions from the studio audience?
Got a few in the Q&A.
Okay. I'll start at the bottom. Where do I start here? Thanks, guys. Tennessee. Oh, thank you, Vicky. Yeah, great picture. Do all testers have similar programs? Vicky, that might have been associated with a particular slide. You have to maybe be a little bit more specific for me. Are companies looking for changing alarm tone so that the same tone isn't? Oh, that's one thing that drives me crazy. So back in the old days, whether you're out of paper or whether your tank was leaking, there's no way. I mean, that's a great question, Emily. I would like to think that you could customize wave files in a modern day tank gauge that would actually specify, hey, Emily, tank number 4 has a sump sensor alarm. I don't know that that's out there yet. I want to think that the capability is there. And so, yeah, I think the capability is there. I've not seen it yet to where you can customize alarms where either they get louder or more extreme or a voice comes on or something like that. I'm with you on that one, Emily. I'd like to see that. I'm not quite sure it's out there. Doesn't that create a national defense secure? Matt, I believe Department of Defense tanks are exempt from the US Finder thing. And so I'm sure EPA went through the process of determining whether or not inventorying the nation's underground fuel tanks was in fact a national security risk. I'd have to double check with EPA on that, but I think they probably took that into account before they launched that. I mean, yeah. I mean, publishing pipeline issues might be kind of more of a bigger thing than just straight USTs. Abigail said, is everyone updating to the new VEDR? A lot of people are. In fact, in the next 2 to 5 years, parts are going to get hard to find. Service techs are going to be hard to find. And at some point, VEDR is going to discontinue support of the VEDR route. There will be some holdouts. I think in the next 2 to 5 years, though, everyone ought to start budgeting to make sure that they have a new, either a VEDR route or another model in place in order to accommodate that. There, like I said earlier, there's some great security, diagnostic, and calibration features to it. But the older models are in fact going away. Yeah. So, and if you have any spare VEDR parts for the 300 and 350 series, hang on to those because they're going to be important pretty quickly. Oh, okay. Oh, I see. Cromco has a dashboard in the vault. I think some of the I'm almost for sure, Vicky, that the major multi-state, regional, national training vendors should have their own in-house compliance tracking platform. And so the smaller ones may not, the bigger ones do. You'd have to shop kind of individually for your testers on that one. Is it possible to receive a certificate for this webinar? Oh my gosh, Marlon, you're coming out from Tinian Services. Wow, that's all the way out in that's a Commonwealth of the Northern Marianas Islands out by Guam. Marlon, you are probably up in the middle of the night. I wasn't planning on offering services, but Marlon, I can send you something to verify that you attended this thing. So this is more just kind of a friendly commercial public service announcement, but I'll try to put something together for you, Marlon. How soon will we have to replace the 350? I think it's the next 3 to 4 years. Veeder-Root will 4 to 5 years. Veeder-Root will discontinue support for the Veeder-Root. So I think there's going to be a rush on parts, and so I would say that from a functional perspective, start budgeting for it now. Probably get a new device in the next couple of years. I think by year 5 from now, the 350 ought to be a thing of the past. But stay tuned for the next Veeder-Root webinar. We can get some more specific information out of that. How vulnerable are online systems to ransomware? Man, Robert, I have no idea. I mean, I may be as susceptible as anything. I mean, our little business here, we get visited by internet robots, all the time, just kind of sniffing around, looking for stuff. So whether I know that the 450 plus, pardon me, one of the better features out there is that it is less prone to being hacked. I don't know. I'm not a ransomware expert. I would say all these systems are potentially subject to it, whether our industry is enough of a draw or enough of a kind of a financial gold mine to have someone do it in the first place. I don't know. I'd be a little suspect. That is a good question, though. Stay tuned for more information about that. There's some good questions here. I'll try to do some follow-up for the next time I do this.
maybe, maybe Matt, excuse me, maybe Matt could provide some kind of general, good business practices for folks. I'm not sure. We have
Yeah,
an in-house guru who protects us from, the baddies, but,
that's true. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, because I mean, if we put all our eggs in the basket on the internet, what sort of liabilities are we looking at through security breaches? It's a fair question. I mean, I want to think that all the vendors who I talked about today, in fact, have that under consideration. We spent an increasing amount of time on internet security, so people aren't cracking into our accounts or grabbing data and stuff like that. So I think it's just one of those unfortunate things where we all have to just increase our security vigilance with all these systems out here. So as you're shopping for a vendor, ask them what their security protocols are. I guess that'd be my advice back.
And just one thing I'll add, Ben, that we're really careful about is using, when you're signing into anything, if you are using two-factor authorization for your login credentials. So we've got like
Yeah.
an app that we use in the business with,
Uh-huh.
with all our login credentials in it. And we have to add an extra code every time we log in. So it makes it really hard for anyone to, hack into any of our accounts with the applications we use for this
And
business.
just as a completely
For any
related but unrelated pitch here, there are great software apps out there. We use 1Password, number1password.com, and it aggregates all of our passwords together. And so I hate having to memorize a gazillion emails and logins and passwords, but I think we all just have to kind of accept the fact, myself included, that there's always going to be an extra step of security to make sure, how many traffic lights are in this picture, or, all that kind of goofy stuff. But it's just, if we're going to be relying on internet technology to do that, we just have to kind of accept the fact that there's just a little bit more security steps we have to go through. Jennifer asks, if you have multiple ATGs at different locations, what is the best way to access them all together, web or cloud-based service? I mean, I use web and cloud kind of interchangeably here, but you can get software apps that can talk to any tank gauge as long as you have internet connectivity. And so being able to get one source to track all of your ATG activities under one vendor would be the way to go. And then you have a web page, an account you can log into, and then get a snapshot. And some of the vendors, pardon me, have their own web apps. And so you don't even need to use a browser. You can just have an app that goes right to your phone. So there's a couple of options out there.
I was just going to add one further point, Ben, to what you were talking about. We use 1Password, that application, for all the login credentials. And you can also you can have like Google, if you use Google Chrome or something for a browser, it'll ask you, do you want me to save this? You can use that.
Correct.
But the idea is, if you use an application that's dedicated to this, they are really, really, really on top of it, because that's what their whole sole business is, versus Google, who's doing everything under the sun, right? So
Yeah.
it's just better to use an application that's dedicated to log in credentials.
Oh, good point. Thank you. Yeah.
I went to a webinar about this once, and that really stuck with me when they mentioned that. And I appreciate it anyway, because we do that at UST training, but it was really nice to hear a little bit better about why that's so important.
Correct. Yeah. I'll have to maybe I'll make an extra slide for next time I do this to kind of talk about the security safety net of it all.
Yeah, I mean, that was really an excellent question, because this is a huge problem, right, in our society now, with everybody doing everything online all the time.
Mhm.
And as individual people just doing our personal business is something to be really careful about. But of course, with your business, that's a whole nother matter. So good question.
Correct. I will be providing additional webinars throughout November. I'm doing one on where are the leaks, which has been kind of a popular thing, breaking down and kind of make into very simple terms, what is a 3 gallon per hour pressure test leak? What is CSLD? All that sort of stuff. And then at the end of the month, I think it's November 30th, I've got a webinar that Veederoot is going to be hosting with me, or I'll be hosting for Veederoot, explaining about the transition from the 350 to the new model. And look forward to a number of more webinars coming up. I think I'm doing one for the state of Wisconsin in January, and I will be attending a number of petroleum conferences and trade shows this coming year. And so hopefully I'll look forward to meeting you. I saw a number of faces and names familiar to me on the webinar today, and Yeah, if you ever have any questions about UST related stuff, please give us a call. We got a newsletter that you probably know about. We got YouTube videos. We got online ABC training. So yeah, hopefully this talk gave you some ideas about how to improve your own business and environmental operations. And best of luck and success in your ability to continuously fine tune and make yourself the best UST compliance program you can be. That's kind of all I got. I guess I'm gonna what do I hit stop record?